Osio Halito, what up everybody? I'm just coming to y'all real quick. It is Melanin History Month, Black History Month, okay? Whether you are indigo, cinnamon, copper tone, tawny, okay? Or you're a red bone, like the red bones of Louisiana, the Caddo Hatacho tribe, the Natchitoches, the Natchez, okay? Growing up, I knew about my father's heritage. That was the focus. I knew that my mother was from Louisiana. When I got older, I found out in depth about my mother's side of the family, and a lot of indigenous tribes focus on the maternal side, your mother's side. So whatever your mother is, you are. And so my mother, her father's people came from France, and they went to New Orleans, okay, and they mixed with the American Indian tribes, the African tribes, and the Spanish, okay? And that is what my mother's side is, okay? So those tribes were the Caddo. At some point, the Caddo mixed with the Choctaw. We also have the Natchitoches and the Natchez mixed in there. So that is my maternal side, okay? Louisiana Creole, which is a pot full of gumbo, full of ethnicities, okay? And they come in all shades. They were the free persons of color, okay? So that is what I know of my maternal side. And my father's side, which I knew growing up, my people were Cherokee, Choctaw, okay? And there was talk of the Seminoles and the Creek. Now the Seminoles were like a mixture of Africans and different American Indian tribes. The Seminole date back to the Great Yamasee, the Guale. Okay, you can also look up Katuba, but the Guale, but the Great Yamasee. So that is my paternal side, my father's side. And so, as you notice, African is in there. Also, the Indigenous tribes, the Indigenous tribes. So we got the Aboriginals from Africa, and we have the Indigenous ones, the Indigenous ones from the Americas. Also, when you have the French and the Spanish in there, the Spanish, they did, along with the French, they did conquer a lot of people and mixed in with us, okay? Like my Spanish family, okay? Like that dates back to the Olmec, when the Olmec came from Africa and they set up shop in the Americas, Central and South America mainly, okay? The Olmec is the mother civilization there. So, all my Hispanics and Latino brothers and sisters and cousins, the Olmec, the Olmeca, they came from Africa, what was called Agbulan. But if you want to go back even further, you go to Pangaea. Pangaea is when most of the land masses were closer together and our people were one. Yes, we had diversity because of the different agriculture and landmarks and scenery, geography in the areas. They were somewhat different, but they knew that they were one family. It wasn't until the invaders came and starting to conquer and getting good with our people, and then turn on them and wage war where they did war, murdering, raping of our people, and some of them, you know, willingly went with those people. So this is just some black or melanated history for this February, which is Black History Month. Okay, now what else goes on in February is Lundi Gras and Mardi Gras, or also Carnival. So these are celebrations that were birthed forth through the mixture of our cultures, our ethnicity and our cultures. And we proudly celebrate these things because it's who we are. It's in our bloodline. Okay? So when you see me posting things, I'm representing my bloodline. Everybody has 4 grandparents. One set on your mother's side, 1 set on your father's side. If you go back to the origin of your family, as far back as you can go, whether it's records, church records, state records, city records, the rolls, the different rolls, the Henderson rolls, the Dow's rolls, all the rolls for the different American Indian rolls, African tribes, the Spanish, the French, they mixed with us, okay, and the European mixed with us. When you have African, you also have like Ethiopia, and then Eastern Ethiopia is Hindustan, which is called India today. Okay, they are of African descent. That is why when you see people from India, they are all shades from indigo to tawny. Okay, you have the Dravidian people and the Dalit people. Research them, look them up. But what you should do is research your bloodline lineage, your heritage. The oral tradition, excuse me, is what is the strongest, because a lot of times our people were forced to choose black or white. And then if they said their tribe or the different things that was in their family, the people that were doing the census marked them black or white or colored. Okay, so you want to keep in mind when you do your research, a lot of your people's birth certificates are going to say black or colored. So you just gotta be prepared for that, okay? But when you see that and then you go to the different American Indian rolls, even though that person was considered colored or black, when you go to the rolls, they will have their tribe, okay? Some of the tribal records were in the churches, because remember when the invaders came, they forced Christianity and Catholicism and different things on our people. And so the chief became the bishop or the pastor. The medicine men and women, the holy men and women became like the prophets, and the nurses, the messengers, the evangelists. So they converted, but they still kept some of their core spirituality from the Aboriginal side and the Indigenous side. This is why a lot of churches of color have a lot of rich spiritual things, like, okay, getting filled with the Holy Spirit. That is just like someone in Ifa, Yoruba, or Santeria. They are getting ruled by a spirit, or they're getting possessed with a spirit. When you say you're getting filled with the Holy Spirit, that is a spirit coming up on you or coming into you. It is the same thing. In Catholicism, they focus on the saints, our ancestors focused on the ancestors and the different spiritual aspects of the creator, creatress, great spirit, what you would call God or goddess. Okay, it's a lot of rich indigenous ways in Black Christianity today, what it's evolved to, evolution. So we took what they gave us and we perfected it. Okay, like even in Louisiana, they had Congo Square where they could go and have their practices. They could have rituals and ceremonies, and they were very spiritual. They had fires lit. They had herb work, root work. They had root doctors and voodoo and hoodoo priestesses. Hoodoo really deals with the herbs and the roots, mixing of those things and cooking with that. A lot of medicinal properties in that. And then the voodoo side is more spiritual, like the spiritual energies. And voodoo is also like Ifa, Yoruba, Santeria, Lukumi, Umbanda, things of that nature. So you have those spiritual practices from our indigenous ancestors, and the Aboriginal ones. You have with the herbal and root doctors, you also have shamanism, medicine woman and medicine man work, where they the shamanism is like lucid dreaming and going into trances and meditative states to go within and get in touch with great spirit or your different spirit guides. The hoodoo was getting in touch with the plant, herb, and root kingdom. Our people believe that the plants and things of the earth have a spirit. So you take that in your body and it heals you. It cures you. Okay? Excuse me. I just got through eating. But divine great spirit, the creator, creatress, God, goddess, created the earth and all things on the earth. There is something to cure anything. Okay? And so our people are a spiritual people because we believed in taking the earth into ourselves to heal ourselves. Especially when the invaders came, they had smallpox and gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis, all that shit. The invaders brought that shit to our people. Okay? They brought that shit to our people, but there was herbs and roots to cure our people. And the enemy tried to get us away from our indigenous and aboriginal spiritual practices. Because if we call on our ancestors instead of the saints, or if we call on our ancestors and the spirit, the different spiritual forces of nature and the different spiritual aspects of divine great spirit instead of Jesus, or all of these different derivatives of a Messiah figure, if we called upon divine great spirit in the Aboriginal way, the indigenous way, we tap into more of ourself. Because our indigenous and Aboriginal practices talks about, yes, you can utilize the different aspects of divine great spirit, your ancestors and your guides, but going within, that is a part of your divinity. And embracing your divinity, you know that you can heal thyself. So the thing is to learn, know, heal, and master self. This is what our ancestors taught us. And I have been on this journey getting back to my ancestral roots and their spirituality, their practices, their cultures. So my page is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. All of that is comprised of me doing different cultural and spiritual practices of my ancestors, their celebrations. I embrace it because, excuse me, the invader wanted us to forget where we came from, to forget our connection to divine great spirit, spiritual forces, the ancestors, guides, the earth. They wanted us to forget that connection and focus on their made-up religions, like Abrahamic religions and things of that nature. They wanted us to focus on their shit. They want us to call up on all these other people and neglect our own bloodline ancestors who can help us way better than a fictional character in somebody's so-called holy books. We had hieroglyphs, petroglyphs, codexes. We had spiritual books in which the Bible and Abrahamic religions borrowed from our ancestors' writings. They borrowed from them and then they twisted it and tweaked it to satisfy them. They have us looking for something outside of ourselves to save us when only we can save ourselves. Divine Great Spirit, our creator, creatress, our ancestors, and our guides are within us. So we should be going within, not outside of ourselves. So we should go within to heal self. Like I said, learn, know, heal, master self. This is what I'm doing in my everyday life. I have incorporated this into my everyday life, in my home, in my practices, what I do. I've even compelled my family members to get back to their roots. My sister, she just did a DNA test, and I told her that those DNA tests are not accurate because they don't use the DNA from the Lucia, the oldest woman mummy that they found. They don't use indigenous or aboriginal DNA to compare with. They use the placenta of a white male, a pink male, 1985. They use the placenta of that male and other DNA strands of people today, and then they compare it to your DNA. If they did the DNA test correctly and used one of those Aboriginal or indigenous mummies that they have that are thousands of years old, millions of years old, if they use that DNA and compare our DNA to that, it will read correctly and say that we are Aboriginal, we are indigenous, we are the bloodline descendants of the original beings here on earth. So just keep that in mind when you go out and get these DNA tests. They're not going to be accurate. They're not going to be accurate because they don't use a real live Aboriginal person or an indigenous person. They do not use that. So keep that in mind. So I want to say happy Black History Month, Melanin History Month, People of Color Month. We celebrate. I love you all. I want to say peace, namaste, ashe, ayo.